Good afternoon, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. So we'll dive straight into this intricate subject of PropTech, and how do we leverage from this myriad digital solutions out there in terms of capturing our emissions data accurately, so it can help us with informed decision making. We have a very diverse panel here representing different walks of an asset life cycle. So it's going to be very insightful, and we'll bring different perspectives together. So we'll start with the first question, just understanding what PropTech is out there. And we know there are myriads of digital solutions out there. Whether it's in the AI space, IoT, digital twins, BMS systems, CAFM systems, and so forth. So how do we leverage from all of these solutions out there in different stages of an asset life cycle, and how do we capture data efficiently so that can be presented to stakeholders to inform decision making with the decarbonisation mandate and achieving our environmental aspirations. Please.
Hello, everyone. I would like to start saying, it always depends on the phase of the project. Absolutely, the PropTech solutions in the design phase, it will be different than one applicable in the operation side or one in the disposal side. Based on my experience in the operation side, we always start by analyzing the asset itself. Here we need to grab all the information of the asset, and accordingly we are setting the strategy of net zero carbon. Here, after having all the information of the asset, we start choosing the most effective solutions that can be implemented. We start with IoT to measure the carbon footprint. We start with odor sensor in the washroom. We start with upgrading BMS system to be connected with all the asset in the building. We start using a smart AI CAFM system, which no need to follow up for your schedule of preventive maintenance or corrective maintenance. This is only part of the applicable and added value initiative that we are doing in the operation cycle of the project. Absolutely, what I would like to see, because nowadays we can see there are many options in the market, many professional service provider, but the problem that not all solution is applicable on the same asset itself. That's why I'm always recommending to start by analyzing the asset, having right data of the asset in regards to scope 1, direct emission, indirect emission, supply chain emission, which always we start integrating into our scope of work, because scope 3 emission is connected with our service providers. And I can see this subject is very mature nowadays in UAE market to match with UAE Net Zero Strategy 2050. And I believe in 2026, reporting of carbon emissions scope 1 and 2 is not optional, will be mandatory for all the companies. And it's not difficult. All you need to have the data of your asset and to work with your service providers.
Great. Ghaith, what's your perspective from a design engineering and from a development phase of an asset?
Thanks. It's great to be here with everyone. I think I'll take a step back before getting to talking about the asset itself. I think it's I'll just start by talking about the importance of, and that's where we start as a consultant to advise clients on how to develop their net zero plans and then get to its implementation, be it during the design and planning stages of a project, or during the portfolio operations, that many developers obviously have across the region. And the starting point for us is always understanding the sources of the carbon emissions. And we have a very big market in this region, a complex market, I would say. The business models are quite diverse. And to be able to capture the relevant data and attribute it to the responsible party who should be taking the responsibility of the carbon emissions and then taking the actions, making the investments and reducing those carbon emissions to ultimately get to their targets. This all requires understanding how the different stakeholders are involved in, from the very beginning in the ownership of the asset, in its design, it's making decisions about what's going to be designed, what's going to be built, who's going to operate it, and how it's going to happen. Because that layer of information is critical to then be able to say, this is the technology we need to be able to capture that kind of data at this level of detail in every different type of asset that exists, community spaces versus individual apartments, villas, townhouses, education facilities. They're not all treated equally. Their carbon emissions are kind of each of them go to a different potentially owner. So understanding those details are critical to then be able to decide what technology to use, where to use it, how to monitor then the carbon emissions. And the other very important point is access to data that is needed to be able to quantify. So there is one level of gathering data on your own assets, and that's kind of the bit I've been talking about in the past minute or two. But then there is the data you need from the suppliers, the power supplier, the water supplier, and so on and so forth. So those are all services that are plugged onto your plot, to your development, but they come from, in many cases from the government. So you need to understand the carbon footprints of those facilities, because that's kind of, that's what your carbon emissions are where your carbon emissions are coming from. And our experience in the region is there isn't a lot of publicly available data that we could use when we're quantifying the actual footprints of portfolios here. It's different across the region, but so some have some figures publicly available, some don't. But that for me is one of the areas that we need to work more on, so we can more fully and kind of more accurately quantify the carbon emissions of our assets across the supply chain. I'll pause here and pass it on to Junaid.
Hello, hi. From a master developer perspective, while implementing these kind of solutions or trying to quantify the carbon emission, we haven't found any single solution which can accommodate all these requirements. Basically, if you see from a city scale or development, we produce power, water, and we manage the infrastructure, not only the buildings. We manage the street lights, we manage the building for the customers. At the same time, we generate the power from the diesel. So in these scenarios, there are multiple systems which are involved. For example, BMS is there, SCADA is there, multiple SCADA, multiple BMS. Let's say in a city where there is 200, 300 buildings, almost, all SCADAs BMS involved, you can see different brands, different communication protocols. So these are the challenges what we have faced. Then in terms of what we have done, we are in the process of integrating different SCADAs into one platform. Then from there, integrate into enterprise asset management solution. The same applies for the BMS. We are progressing with the integration of different BMS systems to one single platform. Then integrate that into enterprise asset management system. So overall, it's very, very difficult to bring all this data. For a building, it's a bit easy comparing to a city scale development. Then aligning the stakeholders. Everybody have different interests, different understanding on sustainability, different way how they look at things. So it's very, very difficult. So this is the thing.
So if I may just add, I think just to confirm what Junaid is saying, we have very similar experience. We've developed a net zero plan for one of the biggest real estate companies in the region, who's actually now becoming more global with the acquisitions they're making. And again, to your point, there isn't a single digital solution that's out there that can capture the complexity of the portfolio this company has. And that is why what we're helping them with is to kind of work out different workflows for the different types of assets, different ownership models, different land uses, different life cycle stage each asset or asset type is at, to then be able to say, right, so that's what we want to capture for each of those different strands of assets at these different times in their life cycle points, to then be able to go and find a technology provider that can create a tailored platform that can process all the data that's currently captured in your standard BMS or SCADA, because all these systems are monitoring a lot of data, but it's not just about the raw data. It's about how you dissect the data, how you attribute the different pieces of the data to different parts of your portfolio assets, to then be able to quantify their carbon footprint and then be able to say, right, so that's what I need to reduce in terms of emissions by this time frame, and you set goals and decarbonization levers and all of that. So again, I wanted to jump in here to confirm Junaid's point. I mean, you're talking about city scale, and I'm talking here about a very diverse portfolio for one of the biggest real estate property developers. And again, there isn't a off-the-shelf product that can help them do that on its own.
Thank you, Ghaith, and thank you, Junaid. The common theme is there are myriad of digital solutions out there which will help us with achieving this mandate of improving environmental performance, understanding what the carbon emissions look like, and how do you kind of inform decision making. But it's also evident there's no one size fit for all, and there's this proper planning, foresight, engagement with different stakeholders that's required, to inform what those solutions look like, and therefore decision making. So it is very intricate. So perhaps we can talk about the intricacies of these myriad digital solutions out there, the effectiveness of these solutions, and as some of the themes that have emerged from this conversation around ever evolving regulatory framework in terms of policies and regulations, the diversity of stakeholders within the built environment, sort of diverging business interests, and how do you bring all of those stakeholders together? And technology itself is a beast on its own. So how do you then manage that? How do you manage that beast? So what are some of the challenges, and what are the opportunities that lie ahead of us in terms of managing this decarbonization mandate, so we can move towards a much more inclusive and a sustainable future in the built environment?
I would like to simplify this topic, because we are speaking on it with many events, and sometimes I feel, to be honest, like this subject is very complicated, but at the same time is very simple. We have many frameworks, international frameworks. We have many guidelines like ISO 14064. You can go to Greenhouse Gas Protocol. You can go to GRI protocol for reporting of ESG. You can go to SDG. Here the company has the freedom to choose with which framework or guidelines is applicable, which one is easy to implement. And I believe the most important part is to creating the baseline. Because once you create the baseline, that means you start measuring. And after that, you need to improve the efficiency of the asset. And this is the main subject of implementation of carbon strategy, energy management, and all of this technology. When you start measuring the carbon footprint, then you will start working on the efficiency, where you need to minimize the input and maximize the output. Here you will bring different strategy, where you have maybe net zero cost improvement, which is to start with the preventive maintenance, small improvement of the asset. Then you need to move on implementation, smart technology like IoT, digital twin, BMS. Then you will start after that with the second phase, which is maybe replacement of the assets itself. There are some components within the time, the end life of the cycle of the asset itself, it's obsolete and it's must go to disposal. Because if you go into investment decision or to go into replacement, you will find replacement cost is easier than repairing cost, or it's much lower than repairing cost. And here the strategy for different asset, it's different from one to another. And what makes this subject simple that you have many options to report on. You have many international guidelines to report on. And you can catch the carbon emission from DUA bill itself. You can get it from Empower. Then you can measure how much you are consuming by having the BMS, and then you can create your dashboard. Absolutely, you will do it into stages, because carbon reporting and sustainability strategy is not one-time job. It's a complete culture, and it's completely different processes and procedures. That's why I'm trying to simplify this subject, because really sometimes we are trying to overcomplicate things, but all we need is to start measuring and choosing the right framework which we can implement as a company.
Thank you, Anas. So it is complex, it is challenging. There are solutions out there, and we have to start. And you require a structured approach to start that process. Ghaith, your insights, please.
Sure. Yeah, I think I've just built on what Anas just said to say, so the recent, I think, regulatory changes are going to help us all, I think, move in that direction of measuring and reporting, and hopefully soon being able to commercialize even the investments some of the developers are making in reducing carbon emissions. So, for example, we know RERA, the RERA index now has been updated by Dubai Land Department to include the attributes of the different properties across the city, and that means we now have access to information about the different assets across the city. That's more than just the rent or the value. It's also the performance against sustainability metrics and other metrics, of course. And I think that's a very important starting point for us as in the region, because one of the things that other places around the world who are ahead of us in this space have things like classification schemes to say this is a class A asset, class B asset, and those classes are linked to the sustainability performance of the asset. And depending where the asset sits against that rating, the rent or the value of the asset changes. So better performing asset means higher return on investment in that sense. So again, that kind of regulatory framework is very important. And I think the law that was passed last year, in UAE, federal law, that requires everybody in the UAE starting, I think, mid-2026 to have a decarbonization roadmap as well as a climate adaptation plan, which we're not talking about today, but very important topic as well. So that, I think, is going to help everybody across the supply chain to start thinking even more seriously how to be prepared for that move, and use the digital tools that are available to achieve those objectives. Ultimately, the way we see it, technology is an enabler. It's a tool to be used rather than kind of something we have everywhere. It's just we bring it in where we need it. And that's why the start from our perspective is by developing a net zero roadmap and then start talking about the technology to help us implement those plans.
Thank you, Ghaith. Junaid, your insights, please.
So just to add, if there is a regulatory requirement only, okay, for any solution related to sustainability, it will enable us to get the buy-in. Buy-in is a key challenge what we have. I mean, from owners, for example, in residential community, if the regulator insists, you will get the buy-in. Otherwise, nobody is interested to pay, interested to invest. Okay, though over the lifespan or over the life cycle of the building, there will be return. But in that aspect, it's very difficult to get the buy-in from the owners. Even from, if you see as a business, that's also difficult. So there should be a regulatory pressure. So I'm coming from Saudi. So there is no regulatory pressure as of now, which is mandating that you have to report. You should have a net zero plan as of now. For a real estate organization, it is not mandated. Though there are discussions going on. So once this is being regulated, and then it will come into a structure in Kingdom.
Great. Thank you, Junaid. I would like to go to the audience here, and if there are any questions for the panelists, any thoughts you would like to reflect on.
Maybe while we're waiting or people thinking about questions, if anybody has, I'm just going to jump in to build on what Junaid was saying around regulation. I think regulations are very important, and I think they're coming, as you said. In some places, they're already now in place, in others, they're kind of in the deliberation stages, but we see them coming, and that is going to be very important. But I think it's more than just regulations. I think we need collectively, as part of the industry, to be advocating for the need of reducing our emissions. And I mean, we were having a chat earlier today, and I was saying it's not just because we like trees and birds and we want to save the planet. We want all of these things, but there is actual commercial case for reducing our emissions, because the impact of our emissions on climate and climate change and the recent events, climate events like the flooding that we experienced in the UAE caused billions of dirhams in losses, economic losses, direct and indirect, to everybody, including property developers and owners and, even us, residents and citizens. So there is a commercial case for investing in reducing our carbon emissions, because the more emissions we have, the more climate change we have, more climate-related hazards are going to hit us, and that's going to cost us money. So we need to be ahead of this, or try and catch up, rather, with this. So there is a very strong commercial case for investing in mitigation, and I think as industry, collectively, we need to appreciate that and start using that language and quantification from monetary value, and to explain why, or put together the business case for such investments. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ghaith. And I'm an advocate of this particular goal as well, because I think what's required is a multidisciplinary approach where you require collaboration from the wider industry. All of the stakeholders need to be part of this. Like you said, the regulation is out there. The technology is out there. There are myriad of solutions out there, but how do you piece them together? How do you put this sort of challenge together and come up with a roadmap to achieve those objectives?
Kulvinder, can I come in as a question, if that's okay?
Sure.
I'm a big believer, ladies and gentlemen, is that panels should never agree. I always think there should be real disagreement in panels. So I'm going to put a statement, perhaps, Ghaith, to you on what you were just talking about there. I found that we've talked a lot about regulation in this panel, and you talked then about having a business case, that there is enough of a business case to warrant a sustainability agenda at the heart of most of these organizations. I'm just going to put it to you as a statement that if we reframe that as carrot versus stick, I don't think that the carrot has been enough in the agenda that we've seen over the last 10 years to actually significantly move the needle in our industry. I think the carrot has been there dangling and saying you could make energy savings, you could make savings on this, that and the other, and it has not moved the needle. And it's only when regulation comes into our sector that genuinely the top tier leadership, who ultimately are the ones that need to make the decisions and set an agenda, are actually setting that agenda. So I suppose I'm just being deliberately provocative and disagreeing with you on the basis of I don't think there is a business case agenda at the moment in our industry, and it is only regulation that will change our sustainability agenda.
And I would say...
You're not allowed to agree with me, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not going to agree. I'm going to say yes, but... So I was going to say, until maybe March last year, it was the view you've expressed would have been the view of many. And I would argue it would be a view that's not looking sort of long enough into the future. But when April 2024 happened, the flooding happened, we know, I've had conversations with developers who now aren't even talking about regulations. They're talking about their reputation, how some of their communities suffered heavily massively due to the floods. And it was very clear to the people who bought property in those developments or are living there as, renters, that this was badly designed or badly planned community. And had it taken into account when it was designed, planned, and later on built and currently operated, some of the basics of sustainability and climate science, a lot of damage could have been spared. And that's reflected on the reputation of some of those developers. And equally, we've had conversations with developers who were actually extremely proud about how their developments didn't suffer as much as others. And that was a very clear example of direct damage and indirect damage to some developers versus others due to a climate-triggered event. Forget regulation. They had to deal with people, I think we all heard about the cases. I'm not going to get into their details. So I think because some people now are feeling the heat directly, they now understand better what some people in the past were talking about, like ourselves, talking about how climate change is going to impact the economy, is going to impact our lives. We need to invest. We need to be ahead of that. Some did, some didn't, and those who didn't really suffered badly last year. So I think that's a real case, hard evidence that says regulations are important, but they're not enough. And the business case is there. The carrot is there for those who want to see it and have the far-sightedness needed to do so. Sorry.
Come on, Anas, are you going to disagree or are you going to...
No, to be honest, I would like to give you a real case study we implemented for the operation building. From investor point of view, they care about the return on investment. And we have several case studies of the asset where we implemented sustainability strategies, more greener spaces, upgrade of the lobby, upgrade the asset as a total to performing, we're reducing the consumption of the energy, installation of BMS, having IoT, reporting on energy and carbon, and then the rental index for this property is jumping 30% once we are done the valuation of the property. What I'm trying to say now, every one of us is start looking to live in a more healthier, environmentally friendly and safe community. And here, where is the need to implement sustainability strategies? Let us not move the focus on the carbon reporting, but into the focus into you have to upgrade the asset itself. I'm not talking for a new construction, because a new construction, absolutely, they are using those technology from beam, from healing cement, from breathe concrete. But in the operation side, that's why with RERA index also I would like to highlight, you will see when you have a building with 5 years old and it's already upgraded with sustainability, with digital visitor management system, with more greener spaces, with carbon reporting in the elevator so everyone see the report and the benefits. Upgrading the asset, everyone will get the benefits, regardless you are owner, you are investor, and also if you are a tenant. So we have case studies.
So what we're saying, Anas has brilliantly closed out the panel by saying we're all going to a utopian future where it'll be all wonderful. Kulvinder, I'm going to come in quickly because we're going to have to end this one. Ladies and gentlemen, can you give these guys a big round of applause? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.